The movie begins with something abnormal approaching Earth at a surprising speed. Meanwhile, on solid ground, a hunter named Wolf checks his traps and realizes he has managed to take down a deer, quickly putting it in the truck. While examining the animal, a strong shockwave from the sky makes him lose his balance. An unidentified object falls nearby, raising a huge cloud of dust. His dog starts barking incessantly, and driven by curiosity, Wolf decides to check the crash site. The dog jumps out of the car and runs towards the crater, but soon Wolf hears the animal whimpering from inside the hole. The dog then comes running out, terrified, while Wolf, intrigued, approaches. A fierce growl echoes from the hole, making Wolf tremble with fear. He grabs his gun and aims at the crater, and a second, even more intense growl echoes from the depths, causing him to shake completely. In the background, we hear the sound of gunshots as the dog runs desperately away. The next day, we meet a young girl named Renee, who loves animals and is saying goodbye to her lizard, which has just died. At home, we find her mother Linda, and Renee scolds her for forgetting to take her to the pet store. Linda seems unwell, and Renee decides to leave her alone. Their conversation is soon interrupted by Renee's stepfather, Chase, whom Renee clearly dislikes. Annoyed by the man's jabs, she decides to leave for school early. Outside, upon seeing Chase's car, she plans to take revenge by scratching it. At school, Renee doesn't seem to enjoy the environment and doesn't have many friends. During recess, her only company is a boy named Paul, who also likes animals and tries to start a conversation, but she avoids contact. When leaving, she waits for her mother, who is late, sending audio messages until Linda finally shows up. A trio of friends laughs at the car and films Renee getting into it. Furious about the delay, Renee hears that her mother had a difficult morning. She suggests that Linda talk to the doctor about taking some medicine, but her mother assures her that her medication is fine. Renee notices her mother is acting strangely and asks if they fought again, but Linda requests that she drop it. At home, Renee goes to feed her pet snake, but the animal refuses to eat. She tries playing music to cheer it up, but gives up. At dinner, Chase comments on the scratches on the car and tries to create confusion, but Linda asks everyone to keep the night calm. Then he complains that the microwave has a strange smell, and Renee reveals that she used it to heat her pet's food, which makes Chase furious. He argues with her, calls her disgusting, and when she retorts, she throws salad in his face. Unable to react, Renee leaves the room, takes a deep breath outside, and soon hears noises from a fight. Not wanting to get involved, she decides to take a ride on Chase's ATV. After a few minutes, she stops in the middle of nowhere to reflect on her life and hears strange noises. Quickly, she grabs a flashlight from the vehicle and heads over to check, finally finding the crater from the beginning. While examining the site, she ends up discovering a strange creature. She is terrified to see that monster rising before her. She runs to a corner and throws herself to the ground for protection, but the monster cannot attack her because it is chained to Wolf's car. The monster runs wildly back and forth, trying to break free, while Renee remains motionless. The beast tires of running and gives up trying to break loose. The young woman, noticing the silence, quickly climbs into the vehicle to escape. But upon noticing that the creature injured itself trying to escape, she cannot leave, as her sense of protection for animals does not allow her. She approaches the chains and cautiously manages to free it, but the monster shows aggression and frightens the girl, causing her to run away from the site. When she arrives home, she looks out the window and sees that her mother is fine with her stepfather, which leaves her thoughtful. Renee, saddened by this situation, decides to stay outside for a while. The next day, as she is heading to school, she sees several military helicopters flying over the area and feels happy about it, believing she has discovered something important. At school, she goes to look for her only acquaintance, Paul, and asks if the boy can lend her a camera. He replies that yes, but the camera belongs to his mother. Renee says it will only be for one day. He refuses and states that usually when his grandfather wants a favor, he gives him some money in exchange. Renee makes a deal and promises to do his English essay in exchange for the camera. Paul thinks it's a good deal and agrees. When she arrives home, the couple is waiting for her to have a talk. Chase informs her that he is trying to change and has joined a support group to stop drinking and asks for the girl's cooperation in this process. Renee, outraged, responds that he was drunk 24 hours ago. Chase says that she is straying from the subject and claims that this is for Linda's good. He asks her to make an effort for the two of them to get along, so that her mother will be happy. He leaves the room, and Linda asks her to be calm, as he is trying to change. Renee says that he didn't even apologize for the previous night and goes to her room. In her room, she makes a list of what she needs to take to return to the monster. She waits for everyone to be asleep to sneak out, but first, she grabs Chase's car keys. We find out that the girl wanted to take the revolver that the man has in his car. She also discovers that he doesn't intend to change, as she found several bottles of alcohol in the car. Renee heads again to the place where she first found the monster, but this time, she stays at a distance and uses binoculars. She cannot find the creature anywhere, so she decides to gather courage to approach. There, she finds some dead animals, possibly left by wolf or killed by the creature. However, the beast is nowhere to be found. Observing more calmly, she manages to find a trail of yellow blood indicating a direction. Using the binoculars to check that area, she spots the beast resting in another hole. She shoots the revolver to try to get the creature's attention, but fails miserably. Renee changes her plan and then decides to approach to film the creature and prove that she is not crazy. She sets the camera to record and says that if anything happens, the viewers should inform her mother. Renee is very afraid, but summons courage to get closer. There she discovers that the beast is trapped in a bear trap and, using a cutter, manages to free it. However, the monster shows no signs of life, and this disappoints her, as she thinks it is dead. Renee does not want to miss the opportunity, so she thinks it is better to take a photo to prove the creature's existence and steps away from it to retrieve the camera. The monster starts to rise behind her, but Renee believes the beast is dead and does not realize. As she approaches the camera, the creature lunges at the young girl, who collapses to the ground, powerless. Renee has no time to escape, as the monster is above her, and terrified, she cannot look at it. The creature does nothing apparent, but behaves like a dog and slobbers on her. It does not appear aggressive and gets off the young girl, who quickly retreats in fear, but continues to stare at the fascinating creature. A few hours pass, and Renee tries to figure out what it is. She tries to feed it, but it rejects the fruit the girl offers. She looks for another option in her bag to feed it, but at that moment, she hears the noise of a helicopter. Renee tries to communicate with the alien and warns it to stay away from those things, as they are from the government and they are dangerous. She doesn't know if it understood, but she turns off the camera and says goodbye to her new friend. The young girl is now at home and checks the recording on the camera, but when looking in her bag, she discovers that she forgot Chase's gun. When she leaves home to retrieve the revolver, she finds that the alien followed her home. She cannot make it go away, so she allows it to accompany her on the mission to rescue the weapon. On the way, she is panicking, not knowing what her mother will do if she discovers this, and also has her insane stepfather, who would easily sell it for a bag of beans. Soon, she realizes that her friend has disappeared into the darkness. She calls for it, but it does not respond to her calls. When suddenly it reappears behind her and uses its alien powers to create a stronger bond with Renee. The next day, Renee wakes up with her friend by her side and runs to hug it. This time, the girl does not leave it behind and takes it home with her, managing to hide it in her basement. At the site of the incident, the government is searching for any clues about the creature, and leading the investigations are agents Jonathan Keyes and his partner Brown. Jonathan complains, saying that he warned about this, but government bureaucracy is always getting in the way. Renee waits for everyone to leave the house to bring her friend inside and tries to feed it with meat, but it refuses. In her room, she introduces her other animals to it, but the beast wants to devour the snake, and she prevents it, saying they are friends. Renee decides to nickname it Croak. Renee picks up her guitar and plays that same song from before, and when she does, she notices that Croak reacts to the music. She realizes that her friend is afraid of something and comforts it, saying that she will protect it for as long as she can. Linda returns from work, and when she checks her phone, she receives a message from Chase saying that he is 48 hours clean. She starts to cry, as she knows that he is lying. Meanwhile, Renee is showing some TV shows to Croak when she hears noises at the door. Worried about her mother's reaction, she decides to take him outside, and when Linda enters the house, she sees all the mess, which only worsens the situation. Later, Paul decides to go to Renee's house, and Linda opens the door to welcome him. Paul explains that he came to pick up his camera, and she lets him in. Paul enters Renee's room and sees a picture of the girl with her father, soon sitting down and waiting for her. Renee returns and finds her mother, who asks about all that mess and why she didn't go to school. She replies that she was feeling sick and decided to come home early. Realizing that her mother already knew she didn't go to school, she quickly goes upstairs. There, she finds Paul watching the footage on the camera, and he questions her about what it is. Before explaining, she closes the bedroom door, while Paul takes the opportunity to remove the tape and hide it in his pocket. Initially, the young girl refuses to tell, but the boy insists and asks for the whole truth. Renee explains that she found it in the middle of the desert and made that filming aiming to get rich, but the creature ended up escaping. Due to the girl's nervousness, Paul notices that she is lying and demands the full truth, as the camera is his, and he has a right to it. Paul hands her the camera, but continues to insist on the truth. She then invents that it is an edited video, like the legend of Bigfoot. When checking the camera, she discovers that he took out the tape and demands that he return it. He decides to confront her and refuses until he discovers the truth, starting a mano-a-mano confrontation. However, due to the noise, Linda thinks the young people are doing something wrong and enters the room. Both are embarrassed, and she asks what they intend to do now. Paul, tired of this, threatens to take the tape to the police. With no options, she decides to take him to the basement entrance and asks if he is sure about this. Upon entering, she warns Croak that she brought a friend, and Paul is terrified to hear the creature growl. When Croak approaches, he does not react in a friendly manner and tries to attack Paul, but Renee manages to stop him. She tells her friend that he cannot eat the boy, as he is also a friend. Paul is so scared that he begins to tremble, and when Croak decides to approach and smell him, he quickly backs away from the young man. Paul is so frightened that he ends up fainting and wetting his pants, and Renee comments that this was expected. The two wait for the boy to wake up to continue the conversation, but as soon as he opens his eyes, he panics upon seeing the creature. Renee tries to calm him down, covering his mouth, but he cannot lose his fear, and she asks him to trust her. Renee removes her hand from the young man's mouth and approaches Croak, singing the same song from before, which makes the creature happy, and Paul is impressed by it. They leave the basement, and Renee begs Paul not to tell anything about Croak. Then the boy decides to return the tape to the young girl. She thanks him and says that her friend is very important to her, and then Paul says goodbye and leaves. In the distance, Brown and another agent are monitoring the two, obtaining a recording of their conversation. At school, Renee and Paul are talking, and she informs the young man that she cannot feed Croak, as he refuses to eat everything she offers him. Paul asks if she and Croak can meet him in the desert that night, but she quickly declines, as the agents are looking for him. Paul says they are looking to the west, south side near the canyon, and she asks what he is talking about. He explains that perhaps Croak does not want to be fed, but rather hunt his own food. During the night, the two meet, and Paul shows her some wild pigs. Renee asks Croak to advance to feed, but at first he does not understand. However, upon noticing the animals, he charges fiercely to hunt them and feeds while the young people talk. Croak finishes eating and brings back some meat for the girl. She thanks him and says she is fine. Renee thanks Paul for that night and for helping her friend. Paul is happy and tries to hug her, but Croak growls, signaling that he did not like that. On the way home, she finds Chase, who is very drunk, and he says he knows she stole his keys to take his revolver. He demands the gun back, but she reveals that she lost it in the desert, which greatly irritates the man. He tells her to sit on the couch so they can talk, but when she refuses, she tries to go to her room. He grabs her by the hair and drags her to the couch, saying that he will teach her a lesson because she does not respect him enough for not being afraid of him. Croak, who is in the basement, begins to feel her fear and gets agitated by the situation. She tries to escape from him and screams for her mother, but Chase manages to grab her. She thinks quickly and bites the man's arm. This infuriates him, and he quickly throws her against the wall, and the young girl falls to the ground, powerless. He approaches her and tries to hurt her, but Linda appears in that moment and tries to stop him. Croak, sensing the girl's fear, begins to pound his head against the wall, making the whole house shake. Realizing that he will not be able to escape, he gives up, and Renee knows that it is her friend trying to help her. Her mother calls Chase disgusting, says she is tired of this situation, and kicks him out of the house. Linda tries to approach her daughter, but she is outraged with her mother and asks her to stay away. Renee goes down to the basement and manages to calm Croak, who is still agitated. The next day, when she is going to school, she is intercepted by Agent Jonathan. He introduces himself and asks if they can talk. She refuses and says she needs to go to school, but he refuses to let her go. With no options, she goes with him, and Jonathan gets straight to the point, saying he already knows that the girl is hiding something. He allows her to go, but first makes her a threat. He states that the next conversation will be with a warrant and that she will be sent to jail for omission and illegal possession of a weapon. Linda calls a plumber, as earlier she noticed that water was missing and that it might have been due to the earthquake the night before. The plumber claims that he didn't feel anything, and Linda finds it strange. The man goes down to the basement, notices something strange in the pipes on the ceiling, and starts to follow them. He ends up finding the creature, and scared, hits it with a tool, which irritates Croak. The monster quickly attacks the man mercilessly, but he manages to escape the basement and gets into his car in a panic. However, he cannot go very far, as another car ends up colliding with his, involving them in a fatal accident. At school, Renee is thoughtful about her conversation with the agent and considers making a call, but thinks better of it and crumples up the card. When returning home on the school bus, she sees the accident near her house, but doesn't pay much attention and continues on. Linda shows up and offers a ride for her daughter. When they arrive home, the two have an argument, and Renee says she can never count on her mother for anything and that all of this is her fault. They soon calm down, and Linda mentions that she called a plumber to fix the pipes, making Renee's expression change rapidly. She goes down to the basement and finds a big mess and a trail of blood. Renee goes to Croak and notices that he is hurt, asking if her friend devoured the man. She remembers the previous accident and thinks that it was caused by Croak, who let the man escape. She warns her friend that he cannot stay here anymore, as her mother might call other plumbers or even come down here, and he might hurt more people. Brown visits Paul and asks for information. Later, the young man calls his friend, and she asks if he can meet them at the same hunting spot. He replies, yes. They soon meet, and Renee talks about her plan to take Croak to a reserve. She says she will stay there with him for a while, but Paul disagrees, stating that she is crazy. She says that she is not asking for permission, just for his help. Paul reveals that a man came to visit him and asked some questions, and Renee tries to calm him down, saying that everything will be fine. However, the young man reveals that he also threatened him, saying that he would deport him to his country, but assures that he didn't tell him anything. Later, Renee prepares everything to run away and leaves a note explaining the situation to her mother. When she is about to leave in Chase's van, the man appears with a gun and drags her outside. Meanwhile, the agents are approaching where Croak is, and Chase takes the girl to Linda's room. The man makes both hostages and begins to get violent, while the soldiers approach the cart where the creature is, but do not find it there, as Croak is returning to Renee. Chase begins to attack Linda and knocks her to the floor, and seeing this, Renee takes the opportunity to run away, but the man chases her. He manages to catch her, and when he is about to kill her, Croak arrives just in time and brutally kills the man. Even with the girl asking him to stop, he does not obey. Noticing that Renee is terrified of him, he decides to flee the scene, and at that moment, Paul shows up. Even with her explaining the situation, Paul no longer wants to help her and reveals that he told everything to the Federals. Jonathan appears at the house and greets Linda. Renee is furious with Paul, but the boy reveals that he had no choice, as his family would be deported. Jonathan confirms the boy's story, and when Renee tries to flee, he quickly draws his gun and shoots the tires of the vehicle. She is captured and tied to a chair, and the agents soon discover that the girl has a strong bond with the creature. Jonathan says he would like it to be different, but he will have to use brutal tactics. He quickly breaks the girl's finger, and she screams in pain, and Croak, feeling her pain, rushes to protect her. The Federals manage to neutralize the creature, and Renee pleads that they do not hurt him, but the agent makes the girl fall asleep. The Federals take the creature to a federal department and also take Renee and her mother together. Jonathan asks Brown to try to convince Linda to say something, as he himself could not. Meanwhile, he goes to visit the girl who is in an isolated room. Renee wakes up and asks if the man killed Croak. He responds that yes, as now they have everything they need. Renee spits in the agent's face, and he does not retaliate, but informs her that she is in serious trouble for omitting a dangerous creature. She asks if helping an alien is now forbidden, and Jonathan replies that legally it is not. But there are some people who care about this and are against it. She retorts that he thinks Croak is evil, but he is just scared. Then, Jonathan reveals that she is not the first to encounter one of those, but the first who survived. Jonathan says that the girl will be part of a study, and she asks what that study is for. The agent explains that it is for them to discover the most painful way to kill them. She asks what happens if she refuses. Then he says he will send her mother to a sanitarium and make the girl's life a hell. Brown confronts the man and disagrees with his methods, asking that the experiment not be like what happened in Iceland. Jonathan shows no interest in taking it easy on the girl and states that he will do whatever it takes. Linda finally gets to see her daughter and asks if everything they said is true. Renee cannot explain the situation, and Linda shows the note she had left for her. Renee says she wrote that without thinking, but her mother says she is right. Linda asks for forgiveness from her daughter for everything she made her go through until now, and says that her daughter has a good heart, just like her father's. Brown interrupts the conversation, taking Linda out of the room, and Jonathan warns Brown that he will give the girl 5 minutes to decide. Renee tries to free herself but cannot. Knowing of her bond with Croak, she starts to hurt her finger to try to call her friend. Croak begins to react to this, but it is still difficult, and with no options left, the girl decides to break her other finger and begins to scream in pain. This is heard by the agents, who quickly send reinforcements for security. But Croak manages to free himself and begins to attack the agents, even with Jonathan covering Renee's mouth. She bites the hand of the man who tries to assault her, but Brown stops him and throws him to the ground. At that moment, the lights in the base start to flicker. Croak is outside the interrogation room, and the two agents arm themselves and wait for the creature. Croak quickly destroys the door, injuring the agents, who fall to the ground. And when he is about to kill them, Renee stops him and tells him not to do it, as he will become what they say he is. The two begin to escape the base, and Jonathan soon wakes up and arms himself to kill the creature. Renee tries to steal a car and put Croak inside, but Jonathan appears with a gun and starts shooting. The two hide behind the car while the man continues shooting. Croak decides to retaliate to save his friend, but is hit several times and manages to kill the agent. Croak is killed in the process, and Renee cries when she sees her friend on the ground. Linda soon appears to comfort her daughter. A few days pass, and Renee is alone on the swing, playing Croak's favorite song, unaware that scientists were studying the body of her alien friend there. To everyone's surprise, the creature is still alive and will return to its human.